Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we've got another big day. We just had a Twitter space with Elon Musk and Mary Barra of GM to make another big announcement related to the North American charging standards. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk a bit about the stock. We've got other news on the Cybertruck, possible Tesla factories, and more. All right, getting into the stock, another nice day today, up 4.6%. So I guess we did not go through with the jinx yesterday. So nice to see that. Tesla continuing the run for the 10th day in a row, finishing in the green. So closing at $234.86 today, which, by the way, this is the first time since the Twitter acquisition that Tesla has closed above $230 per share. So really nice to see that on top of the run that we've got. Continued strong performance here, and I guess overcoming the drought that we have had for that period of time, and hopefully more to come from here. We'll talk about the after hours performance in a second, but just to take a quick look at the streak here, we can see now 10 days in a row, $235 a share, 28% over this period of time. So that now is tied for the second longest streak in Tesla's history. If tomorrow finishes green, Tesla will now be tied for that longest streak. So we look in the after hours here right now, up 2.8% on this announcement from GM. I already see some comments here talking about the shave. Yes, I did shave. It's been a while for that as well. Just trying to send out those 2020 vibes, right? Time traveling back there, and that's what it kind of feels like right now. So the other thing for today, William O'Neill has initiated coverage of Tesla at a buy rating. I didn't see a price target for this, but always nice to see that, and it seems like they're coming in here at a good time. So anyway, after hours, up 3%. This is as a result of the announcement from GM. The Mary Barra, as I said, had a Twitter space with Elon Musk. This is very similar to the announcement that we heard from Ford a week or two ago, that Ford would be adding North American charging standards to their vehicles. GM now jumping on board as well. So GM is going to integrate the North American charging standard in new EVs starting in 2025. So same as the Ford timeline, and GM customers will be able to access 12,000 Tesla Superchargers and growing beginning in early 2024. So on the space, they said that would be through an adapter, very similar to how Ford had offered it. So the other thing here, GM will also integrate the Tesla Supercharger network into its vehicle and mobile apps. So it looks like GM also getting API access like we had talked about with Ford. So this is a huge step, not just for GM, not just for Tesla, but this puts huge pressure on all other automakers, North American or otherwise now, to have their vehicles in the United States and North America be able to use these chargers, whether that's through an adapter or also adopting it as sort of their native connector, on a similar time frame. So I think that's the biggest thing. This is sort of the second domino to fall. Once we had the announcement from Ford, it was kind of like, okay, are other people going to hop on board here? And now within, again, about 2 weeks, we see GM as the other major automaker to get on board. So with that, you start to get a consensus, right? You start to get, again, a lot of pressure on these other automakers to adopt this. I'll keep an eye out for a Twitter space from Stellantis next week. We'll see. I don't know when that'll be, if that will happen. But again, a lot of pressure on these other automakers to adopt this now as well. So I think that's why, we talked about the Ford announcement contributing to the increase that we've seen over the last 10 days. And with this now piling on, hopefully we're, set for some of that to continue, and we'll see. We'll see if this happens. Next week is going to be disruptive, of course, because we do have the CPI report, PPI report, and FOMC meeting. But nevertheless, huge announcement here from GM. The Twitter space was interesting, definitely a little bit less chill than the Twitter space with Farley and Ford. They didn't take any questions off of live speakers, just through chat. So kind of you can be a little bit more selective when you do that. It's a lot shorter, much quicker announcement, but everything was cordial and seemed to be a positive relationship. Unfortunately, although I did request immediately this time, I didn't get a chance to ask a question. My question would again have been if GM is going to invest in continuing to build out the Supercharger network, because the advantage here for GM is clear. The advantage for, accelerating EV adoption is clear. Obviously, this furthers Tesla's North American charging standard as the standard in North America, so that's a huge benefit to Tesla. But there are also other questions of, if they're going to get additional investing support from Ford or GM to continue to build out the Supercharger network now that there will be more vehicles on it from these two manufacturers. And Tesla's obviously put so much work into that. If not, at least, there will be these other vehicles that are paying to use Tesla's infrastructure, generating, marginal costs on that. Now, one thing that Elon did say during the space, he said that, GM customers are not going to get any sort of dispreferential treatment. Tesla customers not any preferential treatment rather than, GM's. So I don't know if he meant that in terms of like pricing or anything. That's not been covered. He could have just meant that in terms of like technology-wise, not limiting the rate of charge or anything like that. But if he did also mean that from a pricing perspective, then that, would have an, interesting implication there as well. So exciting to see this. We'll see how this carries out over the next few days. Hopefully not the last announcement that we'll have from automakers joining NACS. All right, we do actually have a fair amount of other news today as well. So a report from Reuters that, according to a local newspaper in Spain, Tesla has been in talks with leaders of the regional government of Valencia to possibly build a car factory in Spain. So I didn't actually know this, but I think Spain is actually the second largest car producer in the European Union, which is interesting. And if Tesla were to go forward with this, apparently the discussions are around a possible €4.5 billion factory, so almost $5 billion, which would be similar to the sort of investment that we've heard talked about for Giga Mexico. So you could think about it maybe approaching that type of scale if it did go forward. A spokesperson for Valencia regional government told Reuters it had held meetings and conversations with an unidentified company about a large automobile investment, but no other details outside of that in this report. So we'll see. Obviously, we've had a few reports about this, India, Indonesia, probably some other countries coming to mind or rather not coming to mind right now, but I think Tesla probably having a lot of these types of conversations, figuring out, where is best to go, and also nice to leverage across possible, multiple different possible suitors to get the best terms on where Tesla ends up deciding to build. So as Elon said, probably no major announcements on that until maybe the end of this year, probably early next would be my guess, but we'll keep an eye out for more news on factory plans. We've also got a report on Cybertruck plans. This is coming from Electrek. They are saying that according to information that they have heard from Tesla suppliers, Tesla's initial plan for the Cybertruck is to produce 375,000 per year. So previously we've heard Elon mention somewhere in the ballpark of 250,000, maybe up to 500,000. This kind of falls in the midpoint between those two. So, whether that's information or kind of just a guess remains to be seen, but apparently it is what Tesla is telling suppliers right now as sort of that base plan at apparently 85% efficiency for the line. So probably a little bit higher than I would have guessed right off the bat for sort of the first volume targets for the Cybertruck. I probably would have guessed more close to 250,000, although obviously there is a lot of demand that exists. Tesla's going to need to ramp that up, and it's going to take time to get there. So, we'll see how that comes to fruition. In terms of that timeline, apparently, according to this information as well, Tesla is planning to have the first release candidates at the end of August. Obviously, Elon had previously said that they were targeting sometime towards the end of Q3 for a delivery event. So that would put that pretty tight. But we've seen Tesla do those delivery events before where, they sort of really are release candidate vehicles that are getting handed over to employees, maybe a little bit of further testing then before real true customer vehicles. So maybe employees, early supporters, things like that. So Electrek says based on the current timeline, the official start of production is planned for early October. Again, presumably coming from this information from suppliers. So hopefully that kind of lines up with expectations, at least within a couple of months. And, obviously subject to change, but we're getting pretty close at this point. All right, moving on, we've got just kind of a 3-pack of news here from CNEV Post. So first is that Tesla has apparently asked Chinese suppliers to build plants in Mexico. No surprise, obviously they've had huge success with their supply base at Giga Shanghai, as that has ramped extremely quickly over the years. So if they can replicate that and bring some of the suppliers that have helped with that on board to Mexico, that would be a huge win, I think, for Tesla and obviously for those companies as well. So apparently the report here from 36KR is that this is very urgent, and if suppliers don't do this, they could stand out to lose out on hundreds of millions of RMB. So I don't think too surprising, and I think a lot of these suppliers probably already have made steps to do this, even prior to this, report. But hopefully they all do that and can help Tesla ramp up very quickly. Now, also out of China, apparently China is proposing a nationwide promotion of new energy vehicles. It looks like this is going to be focused primarily on rural areas. I read some stuff about maybe some credit assistance for new energy vehicles as well. We just heard reports about the purchase tax exemption being extended. So it looks like China continuing to do things to support new energy vehicles, although that support has dwindled a little bit over time, seems to be coming back a little bit more in the current environment. So obviously that will be most likely helpful for Tesla. In those rural areas, it's probably specifically significantly helpful for BYD, which probably makes sense for China. And then lastly, some news on Ford. Apparently, they are scaling back their Mustang Mach-E plans in China as a result of sales in the country. Apparently, they've recently undergone an organizational restructuring that will see the Mustang Mach-E team integrated into Ford China rather than being a separate entity. So I'm not too familiar with how things are structured there or Mustang Mach-E sales in China, but I don't think it's too surprising that it's, pretty tough sledding there with not only the Model Y running at a lower price than it is here in the United States, but also having to compete with BYD as well. So, we'll see. Hopefully Ford can kind of figure that out. All right. That will wrap it up for today. So as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Friday, June 9th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.